Say hello to my Facebook fans, Massachusetts. Aren't they beautiful? All right. Okay, so I'm going to start right off with a prophetic song. So I have no idea what will come out, but it could end up being, it's a 9-minute piano piece by Angela Pinkston. She did a bunch of piano recordings for me so that I could use them when I didn't have a pianist with me in our living room situation. So here we go.
For your ever will live. We don't really understand that. One of a kind that's ever lived or ever will live. And you have an essence of him that nobody else has. Nobody has that essence of him. And that essence, he must have it, and he must have it all. It's like the aroma must come forth on a higher level and a higher plane. And he deposited the gifts within you, this specific mix within you that nobody else got. That makes you beyond value. There is no price that can be put on you. That's how valuable you are. And nobody can take your place. I don't care if they have similar gifts, they could never do it the way you would. And he craves the way you would do it. And he's addicted to creating. Oh, he never stopped creating. He made you so he could come into you and co-create with you. Yeah. And the two of you would mix his holy seed, and you would become pregnant with destiny. And that baby, when it came out, is going to look like you, and it's going to look like him, and he's going to be so proud that he had intimacy with you. He wants to glorify you to the world. He wants to show you off. Look at my girl did. That's my girl. Yeah. Oh, he loves it when you hang on his arm. Oh, he doesn't mind if you're weak. Oh, because his strength is made perfect in weakness. You can't get any better than perfect. Oh, so why do we try? Relax and melt into him and let him be him. Superman. Oh, he's the real Superman that was created by the Marvel comic book. Oh, he's the one they wrote it about. He is the one, and he lives inside you. That makes you superhuman. Superhuman. So the laws of this earth have nothing to do with you. You are not confined to them. Those that know their God shall be strong and do exploits. And exploits in the original language means the things that heroes do. Let the superheroes come forth out of this room and spread the word. The good news. This is the good news. We are not of this world. We're citizens of another country. The kingdom. And the kingdom is now, and the kingdom is within you. And the king of the kingdom is inviting you to have it all. It's my good pleasure to give you my entire kingdom. And in there is everything you need. Because the Lord is your shepherd, you don't have any need. He said, I have given you all things that pertain to life and godliness. Well, we always go to the godliness part. What is it? What is all things? All things. I will show you the path of life, abundant life. Have we ever tasted it? Have we ever really known what the abundant life is? It's time. This is it. This is the time. And then he said, I'll show you the path of life, and at my right hand are pleasures forever. And what does pleasures mean in the original language? Everything. Yeah. What do you need? What do you need? He said, ask of me and see if I won't pour you out a blessing you cannot contain. Thank you, Angela. Me too. So somebody got pregnant.
Oh my gosh, that was so beautiful.
He is so passionate, and he is so, I feel propelled by him. I mean, I hate travel. I hate it. And so for me to be here is because he gave me a download. And it's so burning inside me that it's worth it to get it out. I have to share it. I have to get it out. and maybe he'll help me find an easier way, internet, the internet, but I have to get it out. I was raised in the church. I was, I've been a Christian over 50 years. I was spirit-filled in 5th grade. I began prophesying and preaching at age 16. I was so hungry for God, people my age didn't like being around me because they thought I was a goody two-shoes or something and that I was no fun. But I would just soak for hours in prayer and be with the Lord and study the Word in the original languages, and I just wanted Him. And I thought that, and some of you know my story, that 25 years of abuse in a supposedly Christian marriage. so much on so many levels that I began to die. So my organs were shutting down, and I was chronically ill for 10 years in that marriage, and then again later ill again. So I was like bedridden for 5 months at a time, only got around with a wheelchair, and almost died a couple times. And I was not going to be divorced. I wanted that pure record, I did not want that. And it came down to the point where God was saying, would you rather be divorced or dead? And I still wasn't going to do it. I thought, no, I'll just live in the loft and we'll be like brother and sister. And it wasn't going to work. And so then God sent 3 prophets. None of them knew me. They did not know my situation. All 3 of them confirmed dreams I had had and said, it's time to go, and unless you go, you're in disobedience. And I was like, wow, I need to get out. And then I watched Braveheart with some friends, and I never watched it because I didn't think I could handle the gore. So then they fast forwarded for me. But the thing that got to me was that last scene where he screams out his last word, freedom. And when he said that word riveted in all my bones, and it was like lightning, like I was on fire, like. And I knew right then, okay, I'm making the call. I made the call and cut it. And so then, I came out on the Elijah list and went worldwide very quickly and traveled the world by myself. And I went through such intense trauma all over the world, horrendous abuse out there. And I'm like, you know what, God, I don't get it, because if I'm supposed to reap what I sow, and I'm all about love, why don't I reap what I sow? Mm-hmm. I could not get it. I was drawing abuse to myself, and I didn't know it. I couldn't figure it out. And then finally, God burst in on the scene in 2012. I lived most of my life being a target, I felt like I was like Cain. I was marked, and everyone who saw me wanted to kill me. So it was horrendous stuff that happened. If I could even tell you one story, you would not believe it. It's like, what? How could that happen? And so, anyway, 2012, I went to have a raindrop therapy. Are you familiar with that? Mm-hmm. And this lady was not a Christian, and but I trusted her. She's a friend. And from the moment she touched my feet with Valor oil, I was in a supernatural, I don't know what you would call it, another realm. Anyway, God came on the scene and took over, and she was just like doing what she does, and she didn't know what was going on with me. But 2 hours straight of nonstop visions. Wow. And it was like a sci-fi movie where a white light, a bright white light came into the right eye, just like that. And with it, the Lord said, it was a memory. The Lord said, do you remember this? Do you want to know why this happened? And it was all trauma. And I was like, yeah. And he explained it, and then he gave me a scripture, and then he would let me process it. And I was convulsing in sobs the whole time. Mm-hmm. And my hands were on fire, like, I even told the therapist at one point, can you, because I couldn't even speak, feel that. She goes, I can feel it from down here. The heat coming off my hands. And then after I would process it, another one over here, a memory. Remember this? You want to know why this happened? And then scripture to back it up. And then he'd let me process it. And it went on for 2 hours. And when I got off that table, I understood my whole life. And I'll give you the summary, and it would help a lot of people. I help a lot of Christian women who've been traumatized, and this helps just about everybody, especially since we're taught certain things in the church that are not correct. And so what it was is your kindness is mistaken for weakness. Your generous heart is mistaken for vulnerability. You always give the ship away, and so you are looked at as easy prey. You believe you don't count, and so people treat you that way. And if you always give the ship away and retain nothing for yourself, that proves that you believe you don't count. And then you are disrespected. You are looked at as pitiful. Have you ever met a person who just keeps buying you things and giving you things, and there are things you don't even want, and you're like, what am I going to do with this? No, you know, and it's just pitiful because they just keep. It's like, stop. You need to stop. And but I was one of them. So I was like, wow, then I don't know how to live. And he said, you're absolutely right. And I'm going to isolate you for 30 days so that I can defrag you, deprogram you, and reprogram you. And he did. And so he said, in that time, you are not allowed to give. And that was really hard for me. My heart was out here. It was unguarded. You know, you're supposed to guard your heart. But I was taught in my growing up that boundaries were selfish. So I had no boundaries, and my heart was unguarded. And I would lunge to give, and the Lord would go, no, wait. Okay. And then he'd show me why I was not supposed to give. We've grown up with the JOY acronym, Jesus first, others second, and you don't count. And I've had so many women come to me who they'll tell me they like my house because it's kind of like Rainey. I love to decorate, and it's all thrift store stuff, but it's just very colorful and eclectic. And I love colored glass, especially in front of the windows, because I just crave that. It must be something about the heaven. It brings the color alive more, or something. So people are always, oh, I just love your house, and I just love this so beautiful. You know, I used to have something like that, but I felt like I loved it too much, so I had to give it away. And that's so ridiculous. And he's taught me the exact opposite. And hopefully I'll remember to tell you that, but I will keep going, trying to go off tangents because there's so much I want to say. So I'm going to try to stay focused. So then the Lord said to me, and not only that, you've been getting in my way. So in other words, I had 3 miscarriages. If your children had lived, you would have been an enabling mother. And so that's what you're doing to my kids. You're an enabling mother. You keep bailing them out, and they can't learn how to access the kingdom on their own. I need you to stop that. And he says, besides, I can't build the kingdom, my plan for the kingdom inside of you, because you have a bag with a hole in it. And you wonder why you're in poverty and why you never prosper. Well, that's because I'm figuring, why should I give it to you? If you're going to give it to them, I'll just give it to them and skip the middleman. So, yeah. So he's like, you got to stop that. And from now on, I want you to hesitate every time you're going to give, because you got a problem. So you're addicted. So I was like, wow, okay. So after 30 days, I understood my life. I understood what had happened to me, that I knew why I didn't think I counted. I was taught that. I was taught to believe I didn't count. And that's a whole nother story. But after those 30 days, people saw the change in me. And I walked with dignity for the first time, and I required respect just by the way my spirit, what my spirit believed. And I remember Doug Addison's a good friend of mine, and I saw him at a Hollywood event, and I was going to be playing and singing, and I walked up to him and he watched me walk in the door and I said, I'm not the same person. He goes, that's obvious. I was like, and then my own mother said, you are not the same.
Wow.
You are so strong. Your faith is like, it's just so strong. And I was never strong. I would prefer everyone. And the Lord said, I'm going to show you how ridiculous you've been. And he's teasing me, you know, he's not being mean. So I took an acting class when I was in Oregon, and we had to do this game. And in the game, he spoke to me. And what it was is that, you know, we were supposed to wander around with our classmates and come up and tell a sad story. And you are not allowed to be empathetic. You're not allowed to care. You're supposed to be like you don't care at all. And I did okay for the first couple, and then I could not stand it, and I was, you know, showing compassion. I failed it, the test, and the Lord said, this is the deal. If you were in a group, when I would be in a group of women, I would keep perusing the room to make sure everybody was okay. And if anybody had any need, I would rob from myself to make sure that they were okay. And he said, this is how ridiculous it is. If someone had a headache and you had a brain tumor, you would prefer them over yourself. And he said, this is the deal. If the cabin should happen to lose pressure, fix your own oxygen mask before attempting to help those around you, because if you don't, there won't be anything left of you to go around. He said, I need you for longevity. And that's why the healing evangelists died early. Mother Teresa, she didn't really have to die when she died, because that's the way she was, the JOY acronym, and she laid down her life for the people, and we all think that's good, but that's not good. That is not good. Our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit, and we have to self-nurture so that we have to give, so that we can be around longer. And I believe the enemy, the accuser of the brethren, has brought in this deception into the church to keep us weak. So we wear out, so we burn out, so our bodies break down, so we cannot go the distance for our calling and what we're supposed to be doing and be strong enough to do it. So my life radically changed in 2012, and I thought, well, I want to go into this therapy. I want to do raindrop therapy. And my friend talked me out of it because of the red tape and the vow that you have to take to use a certain essential oil.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to take that vow. And so I was going, well, I have to do this work, so how am I going to do it? And the Lord gave me the idea, go to massage school, become a massage therapist, so you have the legal right to touch people, their bodies with the oil.
Right.
So that I was going to use massage, right? I don't want to become a massage therapist at 58 years old. So I went down to Southern California because I know I'm called down there to affect Hollywood. And so I went down there, and right during school, I'm beginning to see visions of one-of-a-kind strokes. I'm like, okay. After I tell that, I'm going to talk about art, and don't let me go on another tangent until I talk about art, because it's very important. Okay, so I'm seeing these visions and thinking, wow, I'm going to try that. And it was the most beautiful thing, these strokes. And it ends up being this treatment where it's almost one continuous stroke from beginning to the end of the massage, and it's a dance. And it's like ballet. And I feel like I'm in the clouds, and so do they. They feel weightless, and there's a point to the whole thing. There's a reason why this happened. So he gave me over 60 visions, and I'm still getting one-of-a-kind strokes, moves that have a purpose. And that purpose is to lure the body into letting go of the lies and misconceptions of childhood. And that's what happens. And you know, there's a lot of therapists who think they got to dig deep when you got to problem, and that is counterproductive. That hurts the muscles contract, and it causes damage. That is not the way to do it. This way lures them into letting go. And almost every single person that gets off my table is pain-free. And they're usually an inch taller. They look 10 years younger. All right, so it's like a 3-hour session. And so then the Lord just kept building on it, and he's like, it's become what I call the ultimate. And it's got 5 different therapies in it: essential oils, my music, which some of it's recorded at 55 beats per minute, which lowers the heart rate, the blood pressure, and it causes the brain to come into the perfect state to heal itself and throw off negative emotions. So the oil helps throw off negative emotions and heal the body, and the same thing with the music. And then I learned this therapy. It's like spinal fluid balancing is what I'm going to call it. And that causes the body to throw off negative emotions and heal itself. And I'm going to show you some of it tonight, because if there's anybody with pain tonight, I can get you out of pain in 5 minutes. So that's in there. And then these one-of-a-kind strokes. And then the prophetic. And so for the first hour and a half, I sing prophetically over the client, whatever that comes to me. And I'm embedding the word, the truth that sets them free into the cellular memory for a whole hour and a half, and we're recording. And then we go into the spinal fluid balancing, and we go after the lies. You know, I usually have them give me their 3 top negative emotions, and when I look at those 3 top negative emotions, I can tell what the taproot is. If you pull the taproot, you get the other 2, right? So we take that emotion and we let it lead us back to the earliest childhood memory that they remember feeling like that, and that's where the lie started. We all have them. I've pulled 25 lies out of myself now, and I'm still pulling. So whenever you have a physical issue, you know there's a lie from childhood that's embedded in there, and I'll prove it to you. So and anytime I have an emotional issue that is hindering me, then I'm going to go back and find out why it's there and work it out with the Lord. And so I have had illness in my body disappear within 24 hours doing this. And I went to school to learn what they call emotional release. And I don't do it their way, because the Lord showed me a superior way. It gets the job done. I've had brain damage healed on my table in 1 session. MS, 1 session. Partial blindness. Cancer. The lady passed a tumor this big the next day. And a frozen shoulder, it's going to be unfrozen right there, because I have a download. It's a download. It's not like I am a super talented person. I got a download, and that's what the message is that I'm the demo. I'm the example of someone who's just brave enough to jump off higher and higher cliffs with their eyes closed. That's the way to get it, is to close your earthly eyes and go into the spirit realm and see with your spiritual eyes. All right, so, okay, I've already gotten way off tangent.
Art.
Okay, so art. All right, so the example, another one. So in 1998, I came out with prophetic music, and I was one of the first, groups of people that was doing it. And I didn't even know that was something that you could do, that you could just go in the studio with no music and God would play the whole thing through you. And that's what he did. So almost everything out there is done that way, and I got addicted to it. So then, in 2010, I had remarried the man of my dreams. I adored him. We were on Sid Roth together, but he got into drugs and ruined everything, and I lost everything, my house, car, a lot of my belongings, and I lost my health as well, and I ended up, I call it the crash. When the crash happened, I went to Oregon to be with my parents because I was homeless, right? No car, I had a nervous breakdown, I didn't know what to do. And I was with my parents for 1 week, and God opened up the windows of heaven and poured me out a blessing I could not contain. And
total strangers, non-Christians paid my bills. They gave me a car. Love Inc., I don't know if you're familiar with them. They adopted me. Love in the Name of Christ is what it is. Love Inc. And I got this booklet from the county, and it was like helps organizations. And so I called Love Inc. And little did I know they knew who I was, and they had my music.
Wow.
And so they adopted me, not even telling me that they knew who I was. And so every week they were calling me, what do you need this week? What do you need this
that's
week?
awesome.
And they supplied everything.
Wow.
And so it was like they put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Yeah, it was just beautiful. And so I wrote a movie called, a screenplay called The Oregonian Resuscitation, because it was the most beautiful thing what happened there. So for the first year, I just cried almost the whole year. I would hyperventilate. It was so horrific, the pain. Because even though he did all that, my husband, I loved him. It took me 3 years to get over him. And so, and you know, I was this close to Addison's disease, which is adrenal failure, and I couldn't work, I couldn't do anything. So God just took care of me. But what he did was, I got unplugged from everything I held dear, and I could not lean on anything earthly because there was nothing there to lean on. And so he thrust me through the birth canal into the kingdom just like that. And he began to show me how to live in the kingdom full time. And I'll go into that. But then 2012, I went back to school for art because I thought, well, I'm not doing anything else. I might as well go to school for art because I've always wanted to do art, but never had the opportunity. And so that first day, I was really bad, and I saw the teacher roll his eyes, and I went, oh, I thought it was pretty good. And then he went up in front, and he's talking to us and telling us why it's so bad. And I was like, oh man, this is not going to be as fun as I thought. And within 1 month, I got a download, and I would be like doing my homework assignments. And, you know, I didn't realize how rigorous it was going to be. And you know, like I'd stay up till midnight because it was due the next day. And I would start to see the lines on the page before I drew them. And I was like, oh, my eyes must be so tired. Because that's not what I'm even drawing. And then I'd look again, and and then it would reappear. And I'm like, oh, whoa. And then I'd start following it, and it would be so cool. And I'd go, is that you? And he's going, did you think I could only do it in music? And the hair was standing up on my arms, and I was exhilarated for like over a month.
Wow.
And even my mom, she's an artist, and she would look at my stuff and go, what? And I go, I know. And he said, I saw the lines on the page, Mom.
Oh.
And so I began to bring him in and just kind of watch the teacher's eyes, and he'd be like, and then finally he's going, if you progress any faster, you're gonna break something. And the first few weeks, I sat in the back of the room on purpose with my hand over my mouth because I was afraid that joy would come out, and I couldn't control it because I was so full of joy. And I told him, I said, you have to understand, I'm not mocking you or anything, but this is what's happening to me. Because I am riveted. I would leave class, and if he talked about perspective or dimension or shadows, I would go out and I would see the thing he said, and that's all I would see. And I would be afraid to drive. I'd be like, whoa, why? I gotta get out of the car. Wow, this is sci-fi, man. And so I became an artist overnight because of coming into the kingdom. And so it's like whatever the dreams are that you have in your heart, even if you think they've died, you look down and you're going to see a really bright green sprig coming up from the dry ground. And he's saying, it's time. And because he's Superman and you're superhuman, he wants to do it in your place. So it's the exchange life. Christ in us, the hope of glory. He wants to show us off. He wants to glorify us to the world so they can go, oh, those are, I used to hate them, but, well, they're really cool. I mean, I want what they have, but they haven't wanted what we had because we're struggling. And the Christian life was never meant to be a struggle. Never. It's the abundant life, and it's supposed to be a dance of life and an eternal party. But we got it wrong because we were taught that we needed to be holy and be righteous, and we thought we had to I should, I have to, all the right things in order to be pleasing to God. And he's going, no, it's childlikeness. What's a child like? He doesn't live like that. A child lets go and knows he's nothing. He that thinks he knows anything knows nothing yet as he ought to know. That's what a child is. And if you think that way, that verse has been like my verse for my whole life. If I think I know nothing yet as I ought to know, then he can continually blow my mind. I'm never, I don't want to have a strong opinion about anything that he hasn't said to me because I don't know it yet. And I believe that I don't know the Bible. I've read it cover to cover, dissected it word by word, but I don't know the true interpretation of most of those verses until he blows my mind with it. And so he's been doing that because I live alone, and so I have prepared this atmosphere for him, and that he can speak continually, and I go to sleep speaking in tongues and asking him a specific question, expecting a specific answer, and he answers me usually in the middle of the night, and it's just goosebumpy out what he says, And so, and then I wake up speaking in tongues, and I speak in tongues all day, and I live a supernatural adventure because since the crash, I've worn 5 hats. In other words, I do the work of 5 people, and it's become, I'm almost 62, and it's gotten to the point where I can't do this, I don't want to do this, and some of the words that I would say would be, I'm so overwhelmed, I've got way too much on my plate, this is impossible, I can't do this, I hate this. And he began to explain to me what I was doing to my body. Negative words, words have the power of life and death. Thoughts have the power of life and death. And when we engage in those negative emotions, it damages the DNA and it robs the angels of their fuel to do what you need done. And so I have stopped all that language, and I keep correcting myself. I'm still learning how to come into a different realm, because he said, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So whatever you're doing and whatever's happening in your life, if it's not easy and it's not light, it's not him. Or he's going to show you a new way to do it. So if I don't have an assistant, then I still have to do it. That's the thing I couldn't figure out. Well, there's nobody else. I can't just drop it and leave it and walk away. And he's going, no, but you can do it in a supernatural adventure with me. I'm going, okay. And so before I ever get out of bed, I picture myself melting into him. And then he's in charge. And I have the mind of Christ. That's better than the wisdom of Solomon. Who needs Solomon's wisdom? We have the mind of Christ. He has it all. We can pick his brain anytime we want. So I'm going, okay, here we go. And one day I swung my legs out of the bed, and when my feet did not hit the floor, they landed on top of his feet. And then he took my arms and he goes, you ready? And I started to laugh because I really saw it. I saw this vision. I go, okay, let's do it. And it was like, there's just a small amount of time to get all this done before the client shows up. And he go, okay, grab that. Okay, let's do this. Okay, come with me. Yes, we're going this way. Don't do that. No, not now. Let's go. Ba. You can do that later. Hey, shove that in the room. Who cares? That kind of thing. And guess what? She's going to be 5 minutes late, so you got 5 more minutes. And then he'd be just doing all this stuff. And then we just finish, and I take a breath, and the door would ring. The doorbell would ring. And it became fun. It became an adventure, And so everything, he's just teaching me how to do it in a kingdom way, because I'm not earthly. I'm not an earthling. So I can do the impossible. I can do the things that can't be done. And nothing will be impossible to you. So it's such an adventure. It's so much fun.
And he said to me, you've downloaded all these things, but now I want you to get in your head, don't cap it anymore. Don't cap it. In other words, I want to keep blowing your mind to the possibility, so let me. Don't think, at first I was a musician, right? I saw myself that way. That was my identity. And then, when I was really weak, I couldn't blow flutes. Even talking was hard, and whispering was hard. And so then where's my identity? It's gone. So then I became an artist. Oh, I'm a musician and an artist. And then he's going, oh, come on. And so then he gives me this therapy, and then, oh, now I'm a therapist, and all of it comes into play to heal people. And he's going, and then that first treatment that he gave me was called the personal destiny treatment. And then that was my big thing. And then he's going, no, I want to blow your mind to some more. And now it's the ultimate. And so, so I'm not going to cap it anymore. I'm not going to limit him. To the extent we limit him, to that extent, we're going to be limited. But he's not doing it. He said, it hasn't even entered your heart or your mind, the things I have prepared for you. And he said, the eyes of the Lord roam to and fro all over the whole earth, looking for somebody that will let him show himself strong. He's bored. He wants to show off, and he's going, yeah, I'll take care of rent. Yeah, I'll take care of this or that. But can't we do something big? It's time right now. I have to wake you up to the big things, the supernatural things that jut you out further so that you get the attention of the world. Because now's the time. And so that's what's been happening. So I'm going to just check, is there anybody who has pain right now in their body? And where's the pain? Shoulders? Okay. Right on the top or in the back?
Both.
Top and back. Okay, would you like to get some pain relief right now?
Sure.
Okay, you want to come up? It's just like a 5-minute thing.
Do you need a chair, Teresa?
No. You want to help me? Yeah, just put your hands over here like this, on that side.
This,
Yeah.
just like this?
Yeah, front and back.
Okay.
All right. And tell her she's got the whole area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? All right, and do it very lightly.
Okay.
Just very lightly. You barely have to touch it. All right. Now, this works even if you don't do the spiritual end of it, because this is spinal fluid balancing. And what happens is, when you do this, the spinal fluid can tell that you're there, and it's like getting a message, like an SOS, just like when you cut yourself. Your body sends a message, SOS, we need to go down there and help. And that's what happens with the spinal fluid. It'll say, oh, you need me? I can feel it. It's increasing right now. It's so anyway, so it comes up and it starts pumping twice as hard. And when it does, it brings pain relief, healing, and a sedative of peace. Sometimes you can feel it, and sometimes you can't, because you're just not used to knowing what that feels like. Are you feeling it?
I'm feeling warm.
Yeah, it's really strong in my hands. Are you feeling
I'm
it?
feeling it.
Barely.
Okay, so then you gotta lighten up. All right, so you just do it like 5 minutes. I have had horrific injuries in since I learned this, and I've been out of pain in 5 minutes every time, and then also healed it. So I had a sprained ankle. I couldn't even get a shoe on. In 5 minutes, the inflammation was down. In I can't remember, it was 2 or 3 days, it was totally healed. I never go to the doctor. I never go to emergency. I never take drugs. And another thing I do is lavender and peppermint. It's a 1-2 punch. And so you put lavender on first. Let's say it's a knee. Lavender on first, peppermint on second. Peppermint drives the lavender deeper into the bone. And then you surround it with your hands. Wherever you're hurt, you surround it with your hands lightly. You don't push, you don't massage, you just hold lightly. And the spinal fluid's going to pump in there. For me, I can feel a 50% pain reduction in 2 minutes, and in 5 minutes it's totally gone. So the most extreme example is I hurt my colon, and I won't go into detail about how I did that, but I was bleeding. I was in intense pain, laying on the floor. I didn't know anybody in my town at the time. There was no one to come and help me. Most people would have gone into emergency, but I wasn't going to do that. And I prayed, because every time I've gone into emergency, it's been disastrous, like they did not help me. And I just wasted my time, and I was in much more agony being there. So I just asked the Lord, and he said, you're going to put lavender on your abdomen. You're going to put your hands front and back. And even though it was intense pain, in 2 minutes it was 50% gone. In 5 minutes it was completely gone. And I went into a deep sleep because the spinal fluid brings a sedative. So I was asleep for 2 hours. I woke up and the pain was heating up again. I did the same thing and it worked again. Every 2 hours I woke back up, same procedure, and I did it 10 times that day, and in 3 days I was completely healed, and it was catastrophic. It was really bad. So I just have to get this out there to everyone, because you can save money and time and help your grandkids and your kids, and there's no reason. You're right. So how is the pain level now? Yeah?
It's better.
Good. So let me show you, go ahead and have a seat. Anybody else? Okay, and where is your pain?
In my neck and shoulders. I've had.
By the way, do you want to know why your shoulders hurt?
Yeah.
Okay, so the emotional root of the shoulders hurting is being overburdened and carrying too many people's loads. All right, so God, he wants you to cast your care onto him, and when we are called burden bearers, we don't do it right. So the burden bearing is to take their burden and cast it on the Lord, not carry it. And again, if we're enabling these people, they got to carry their own load, or they're never going to grow into the kingdom and become what they were created to be. So the word no is a very important word. That's one I could never say, and I'm really good at it now. So I'm am I on the entire area?
It's like this.
Okay. Okay, so, all right, do you want to know the emotional root of the neck issue? All right, so the emotional root for the neck is that you have been resisted in childhood by a parent where they would not accept who you were created to be and wanted to cause you to be who they wanted you to be. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yep.
And then what happens is once you grow up that way, you have a lie embedded from childhood,
Right.
that is like a magnet. So in childhood, in fact, let me just I'm going to put some oil on there right now while I'm talking, and then by the time I'm done, you won't have any pain. You know, the government won't let us say these things, but they're not here. It's the truth. The truth will set you free, and I am not going to be hindered. Would you mind doing the peppermint? Because
No,
I don't
I
want
don't
to
mind.
have that
Yeah.
on my hands.
What is this one?
Yeah, and just
What do you want me to do, baby?
put it in your hand and rub it on her neck, and then you'll want to probably wash your hands, because
It's
you
my
don't
thought.
you don't want to get it in your eyes.
You don't want
Yeah,
that in your eye.
and just put it on her neck and just a little bit on her shoulders. Okay, peppermint, lavender and peppermint is a 1-2 punch. So, but you don't even, even if you just did the spinal fluid balancing, you're going to get pain relief.
That feels good already.
Yeah. Okay. So now this is it, front and back.
Smells good too.
Yeah. So what I was telling them is that, this is laying out of hands.
Yeah.
And when people come and get trained with me, and then they get ordained. And so they have the legal right to touch people, but we call this part of it, I mean, there's an actual class you take to do this work, but we call it laying out of hands for the spinal fluid. And you know, in scripture, we now know that the oil was not olive oil or vegetable oil, it was the right oil for the job. So I just want to get this word out to all church altar workers. If you did it this way with the lavender and the peppermint and laid your hands on in the correct way, everyone you touched would be healed. And the church would grow so fast because good word travels fast, and everybody's going to want to go to that church because everybody gets healed there. So now, one thing I didn't mention with you, I was going to tell you about, okay, so why is it here? So we were talking about the emotional root to pain in the neck is somebody was a pain in the neck, and somebody, one of your parents, tried to stop you from being who you were created to be. And your DNA will not allow that. Your DNA screams to be who it was supposed to be, and it will not, it cannot back down, even if the parent continually tells you you're stubborn and rebellious and disobedient. You can't back down because you know who your spirit knows who you were created to be. And it's almost like, you know how the earth groans waiting for the sons of God to be manifest. Well, so does every cell of your body.
Wow.
It's groaning, and it has to come forth to life.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, and so, so then in childhood, as children, we don't know how to process life. And we also believe that all the adults in our life are right and we're wrong. We just do. And so then we believe a lie about ourselves.
Yep.
There's something wrong with me. I'm not a good girl.
Yep.
That
was me.
I'm not approved of, so I'm going to have to
I'm no good.
I'm going to have to try hard to be good.
Not good enough.
Yeah,
no good.
Exactly, see? And so then, not only do you believe a lie in childhood, but you also come up with a conclusion about the rest of your life. If this is true, then this is what I'm going to have to do for the rest of my life.
This is what I deserve.
Even if you're only 5 years old, you begin to work hard, and it warps your DNA until you get it pulled out. Now, this is the thing. The spirit that raised Christ from the dead wants to quicken every cell of your earthly body, and that means make alive. He wants to bring it back from the dead. Wherever you have pain in your body, you do not need surgery. You don't need drugs. And drugs are shutting up the body's natural warning sign saying there's something you need to deal with. The pain is a sign that there's an emotional issue that leads to a lie, and it needs to come out so you can be who you were created to be.
I'm like the living proof of this. They had me on morphine, fast acting pain. Then they put me on all kinds of muscle relaxers, a whole bunch of stuff.
And the more drugs you on, the more drugs you need, because you have to have a drug to undo the side effects of the other drug.
I got into, Rainey started taking me to the bridge, and I started doing things on my own and Bible studies on my own, and then I got off the morphine totally, 100% off that. I got rid of all the other junk they put me on, it was $150 in co-payments of.
Okay. So now the Lord wants to finish the job. This is it. This is the finish line right now. So lavender and peppermint twice a day if you need it. But all you have to do is pull the lie. So you lock onto that negative emotion, that feeling, and let it lead you back to the lie, which I think you already know the lie. And then just lay in bed and ask the Lord what the truth is. That's what we do in this therapy, is we don't tell people what to believe. We ask the right questions so that they get to hear the voice of God. We want to teach them that they're hearing correctly, you know? So once he tells you the truth will set you free, and you can have instant
healing at that very moment.
Wow.
Sometimes, like Dr. Caroline Leaf says, it can take up to 63 days. My clients, you just never know how long it's going to take. I've pulled 25 lies out of myself, and so usually my physical issues disappear in 24 hours or instantly. So, what was the number of your pain when you came up here from 1 to 10?
Probably a 5.
Okay, what is it now?
Whoa. Maybe like 2.
Okay,
Yeah, it's good.
all right.
Wow.
So, you
Feel lighter.
address the lie, but you got to ask the Lord what the truth is.
Yep.
And so I just did a therapy for Steve Schultz and his wife, and he said to me, "What's the percentage of people that get healed?" And I said, "The percentage is high as the people do their homework." And the homework is you say the truth every day for as many days as it takes to finish the job.
Wow.
Because what the problem is that the earthly mind has been running on a rut for how many years that you are old. And so once you pull the lie, you corral the earthly mind and force it to believe the truth. All right, and so it aligns, you force it to align with the truth, but then it's like a stubborn child, it wants to go back in the rut. You can't let it. See, that's what I feel like is the missing ingredient with sozo. Because I get sozo people coming to me and they say, "I had a breakthrough and I lost it." Why? Because you have to do the maintenance, you have to do the homework. And so you just keep it going. You know, like every morning I say my affirmations of truth that he has given me, and he keeps multiplying it. He keeps making it a bigger truth and giving me more truth about it. And so I say my truth, and it corrals the carnal mind. It blinds it with the glorious light of the truth. So when Paul said, "I beat my body in subjection and make it my slave," in the original language it really means give it a black eye. So it can't view things from an earthly perspective. It's no longer the boss. And the thing is that we have been trained and brainwashed, even as Christians, that the body, we live as the body is the boss and the emotions are the boss. And the spirit is something at little, during devotions or, sometimes we hear the voice of the Lord, whatever, and we love it, but we don't live in it. And so we have to get used to that the spirit is the boss and that the body has to align. And so since I've pulled so many lies, my earthly mind is beginning to understand it's not in charge anymore. And so it bows a lot quicker. It's like, okay. And so, it's like you've probably read that Francis Frangipan book, There Are Two Trees in the Garden. And as Christians, we don't realize how often we go to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And what it means is we make our decisions based on human reasoning and human logic. And we do it all day long because we think we're earthlings and we have been brainwashed. We don't realize the amount of brainwashing that's been done, but we speak just like they do. Like, well, when you get a certain age, you have a little arthritis. No, you don't. No, you don't. Not if you're a king to mine. And I felt like the Lord was saying, "You've got to tell the people. I'm so tired of people saying, we don't know why not everyone's healed."
Yeah, right.
He's like, "Oh my
Right.
gosh,
Yeah.
the price I paid, and you're going to say that? It's insulting." And he said, "I am the God that heals you, and I paid a big
Right.
price." And salvation means body, soul, spirit, wholeness.
Right.
Wholeness. He already paid for it. He gave it to us. It's ours. Healing is the children's daily bread.
Right.
What is
Right.
bread?
Yeah.
A staple. It's nothing. It's not a miracle. It's a given. It's the most boring thing on the table, right? It's just a given. It's ours. And he said it's our daily bread. Why don't we have it? Because we perish for lack of knowledge. And the lie blinds you.
Yes.
And we all have them. To the extent we have pain and problems in our body, that's how many lies we have. And we should never stop pulling. We should just keep pulling and get rid of them. And all the things that hinder us. He said, I've already given you all things that pertain to life. So asking for, I need a miracle. We need a miracle. We got to pray for a miracle for healing. And he's going, no, I already gave it to you. But the lie is blinding you that it's there. You're seeing like this or with your earthly eyes. And so if you blind the earthly eyes or the human reasoning, and he told me the carnal mind is human reasoning. We always think of it as the sinful nature. Well, it is a sinful nature, but it's the carnal, earthly, human reasoning. That's eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thinking that we know something. He that thinks he knows anything knows nothing, yet as he ought to know. And even Paul said, I determined not to know anything among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified.
That's good, right?
And so you come into an understanding that I don't know the truth about this right now. And then you're set up to hear the truth that sets you free. It will always set you free. He said, we talk about unanswered prayer. That's impossible. He said, I've answered every single prayer you ever prayed, and I answered it before you called. And whatever we don't pick up, he stores in the storehouse. And it's in the kingdom. And we have a right, because the kingdom is inside us, to go in there and get it at any time. You can download anything you need. It's there. He said, it's my good pleasure to give you the entire kingdom. And so think about, after a while you'll start to hear yourself speak and go, oh, that's earthly. Oh my gosh. And every time you speak that out, the words have power, or think those thoughts, the words have power, and it tethers you to the earth. You can't fly, you can't soar, you can't live in the spirit realm because you've just tethered yourself. And especially the last 5 minutes before you go to sleep, it will shape your next day, and it will shape your year and your life. So if we go to sleep thinking about problems and worrying and upset, it will magnify it the next day, and it will keep magnifying it. And if you go to sleep magnifying God instead, it gives the angels fuel to go do it. And so I think we've forgotten that, or not realized that thoughts have the same power as words. And every single word that comes out of our mouth is either going to be life or death. There's no middle ground. And we don't stop ourselves. We just engage, And I'll just give you an example. When I was trained to do this certain, emotional release, we were taught to, take the negative emotion, let it lead you back to the earliest childhood memory you remember feeling like that, find the lie, pull it, replace it with the truth that sets you free. But they allowed the person to tell the memory what happened. Well, for 2 years I was doing this, and I realized I am hearing horrific trauma stories for a living. And I began to get very weak and very tired, and 7 months I was so fatigued I could hardly stand it, and finally ended up in bed again. And I was like, what is wrong with me? And then I heard Dr. Caroline Leaf say, every time you speak negative words or hear them, it damages your DNA right there on the spot. And they've shown the scientific proof. You can see it. And then if you just replace it with the truth, it heals it immediately. And so I thought, oh my gosh, that's what's wrong. I can never do this again. And then I thought, thank God, now I'm going to be able to teach my students that they can't hear it either. So I stop people, my friends, if they start telling a sad story, even if it has a good ending, I don't want to hear the details, and I stop them every time. I can't hear it, I can't hear it. And I've almost become PTSD with hearing too many stories.
especially painful stories. So I stopped, and it has made all the difference in the world. It's not heavy anymore. That's why his yoke is easy, his burden is light. If it's heavy and it's not easy, then you got to take a look and see why. And you got to make a change. And he said, you have to change everything in order for everything to change. He said it's your move on everything. Everything we've been praying about for years. He's going, I already gave you all things that pertain to life and godliness. It's your move. And you know, if you can't see what the thing is to do, you don't know what to do, then you need to pull a lie so you can see. He's already answered everything. He's already done. There's so many verses that talk about all things, all. And he said, it's your move. You've been waiting on me, but I'm waiting on you to come forth to life. And this is why, you know, once we stop perishing for lack of knowledge and we get the air cleared from the lies, we finally come into the kingdom, and that is where you begin to do greater works than Jesus did. We've been waiting for that time, and it's here. And he's very passionate about it needs to happen right now. So that's why I'm here, you know, when I hate travel. Because I'm just exploding with this message, and I just have to get it out. It's like that, you know, there's so much revelation, like in his light you see more light. And so once you start pulling lies, it's like we didn't know that we were seeing like this. And once you start pulling lies, it gets like this, and you see more and more and more, and it's like you're constantly seeing. And every time you, like, I don't read large amounts of scripture. I meditate on one so that he can blow my mind to it. He's always wanting to blow our minds to how big he is and the truth. And so I've really gotten into the two trees. The tree of life is eating of him, and knowing you know nothing, and gazing. He said, you know, it's not hard. It's not supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be a dance of life, an eternal party. All you do is become like a child to get in. I mean, you can't even see the kingdom unless you become as a little child. And that is carefree, knowing you know nothing, be celebrating your weakness, because it's in your weakness he's made perfect. His strength is made perfect, right? And so you come in, and then all you do, because you're little, right? You can't see from his perspective, so you just go like this. Daddy. He's going, hi honey, come here. And he takes you up and he puts you on his shoulders, and all of a sudden you go, oh, that itty bitty problem was really tiny, wasn't it, Daddy? And he's going, yeah. Want me to squash it? And he goes and he takes care of it, you know? It's him. He's the one. He's going to do it. And he wants to. He said, it's my good pleasure. He said, I earnestly long to be gracious to you. But it's like the lies blind us, right? Mm-hmm. So he's standing there with the answer, here, honey, and we can't see him because we're focused on the problem, and he's right here. The earthly mind is right here. He's right here. And we have to cast our cares and pull the lie, and then not presume to know anything, so that we can gaze into his eyes. That's all he wants, is that love affair of gazing into his eyes. And then in his light we see light. We see more light. And we can live a supernatural life. So it's like every day we need to see what needs to change, and how am I acting like the earthlings? Okay, so I'm not trying to condemn anyone, but let me just ask you a question. When you go to a doctor and you get a diagnosis,
Where did your doctor get that diagnosis from? Human reasoning? Logic? He got it from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And so then you buy it. You pay a big price for that carnal-minded reasoning diagnosis. And then you are tethered to the earth. You're tethered to that thing. And then you cry out to God for healing. But you're already blind and you can't see the healing that's already been sent. So, maybe there's another way. The great physician is the best in the business. He is the expert of all fields. You don't need to see a different expert for everything problem that goes wrong. You need to find out what the lie is that is blocking the spirit that raised Christ from the dead, exploding his life and bringing it back from the dead. So it's like, this is the way I see it. The spirit that raised Christ from the dead is just trying to get through, but he can't and he won't bypass the lie because he won't violate your will. So he's like, you pull that lie. That's why I've had so many people healed in my office in one session. Drastic, miraculous. Is it really miraculous? Is it? No, it was already in our knapsack, and we just had a hindrance in there. It's way, way better than we ever thought. The abundant life, the good news is way, way better than we ever dreamed possible. But our words tether us to the earth. Even like aging. I don't believe we have to age. If your spirit is the boss, which it's never really been, because we were brainwashed to be like the earthlings. If your spirit was the boss, what does your spirit look like right now? People that have heavenly experiences, they say everybody looks in their 20s,
Right.
perfect weight,
Right.
they haven't lost anything.
Right.
So if you've lost teeth, in your spirit realm, they've even proven this, in your spirit man, those teeth are still there. So, the more you get your spirit in charge and subdue your earthly mind, the more you're going to reverse the aging process. What did he say? I will renew your youth as the eagles.
Right.
It wasn't just good poetry.
Mm-hmm.
He meant it. And we didn't understand what that meant. Was it just the spirit coming on you and giving you strength for today, and then it flits away? Or is it a real thing that can actually happen? And what did he mean by, I am the health of your countenance? It means face. I am the health, life of your face. And one day he said to me, Teresa, what do you think the emotional root is of a sagging face? And I went, what? He said, hopelessness and despair. So the skin gives up.
Sure.
And people said that I never aged until what I call the crash, 2010. And I lost everything, including my face. And I went, when I was in Oregon, I looked in the mirror and I went, oh my God! I lost my face. It was sagging, but it was hopelessness and despair. And so now, I believe, if I would just stick at it, and every night, put my hands either side, slightly lifting but very light, and begin to speak the truth that sets me free, and impart hope. Take hope. Why was that hopelessness embedded? It was embedded from childhood with the trauma that happened to me, and I believe there was no hope because there was no one to help me. And then he took me back and he showed me what the truth was and what he was doing, because he never left me. He never once took his hands off me. I'm the apple of his eye, and that's kind of like the iris. So how could he ever lose sight of me if I'm the iris of his eye? He engraved a tattoo on his hand because he can't ever stop thinking about me. And he said, you know, I'm going to give you a little visual. The umbilical cord from me goes to your heart, from your heart to my heart. There's an umbilical cord, there's a lifeline, and you can do all things through Christ who infuses you with his strength. Picture it, picture it. What does it feel like? Use your senses to get the earthly mind, to prove to the earthly mind that it's real, because it doesn't get it. Feel it, see with your spiritual eye. What color is it? What does it feel like? So I impart hope to every cell. Take hope. Take hope. Look at the power of my words coming out of my mouth. My body hears it. Power, life. It's life. Hope. Oh, joy. 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 No disease can live in the presence of joy. If you have joy spinning in your cells, it causes your cells to spin so fast, it eradicates all illness. And so as you do that, your face takes hope, and it comes back up. So, you could be 62 like me, and just keep getting younger and younger. You could become a massage therapist at 58 years old, and no pain in your wrists. You can work for 3-hour sessions and come out invigorated, because the Superman that lives inside of you makes you superhuman. You can do anything and nothing will be impossible to you. And I believe that he initiated the superhero movies to give his kids a visual, especially Wonder Woman. Beautiful, beautiful movie. Such analogy and such purity. It's truth, love. It's all about truth in that movie, all about love in that movie. And she began to believe who she was. And then, and this is what I believe, we talk about the enemy too much, and we give him way too much credit. And I love Isaiah 40, and the Lord says, he shows off to him. He goes, where were you when I did this? Where were you when I did this? Have you ever done this? And then he goes, no, because you're nothing. Then he says, no, you're less than nothing. That is the coolest thing I've ever heard. No, you're less than nothing. Well, what do? Oh, the enemy's just beating up on me. Oh, the enemy this, oh, the enemy that. And then we do these big, loud deliverance sessions and scream at the enemy, and he's just laughing because he loves attention. But what I do is I ignore him and I magnify God. And when you magnify and worship and enthrone the Lord, the enemy has to leave. He has no choice. And all the courtroom sessions going on, I believe in the courtroom sessions, but guess how easy it is. You pull a lie, and the case is thrown out of the court.
Yeah, that's good.
They got no case because you pulled the lie. They have no right to touch your body. As a kingdomite, you are exempt from all physical illness.
Right.
It's only the lie that gives the enemy the right to inflict your body. Isn't that exciting?
Yes.
So we don't ever have to be ill again. Go after the lie, get it out of there, and the enemy has to get out of the court. Our daddy, the judge of all the earth, takes the gavel and he's so excited. My kids, they're beginning to believe. They're beginning to understand they were made in my image. They don't have to have illness.
Right.
Same with poverty. Same with financial situations. He's the richest man in the world, and he's our daddy, and he said, it's my good pleasure to give it all to you. So why don't we have it? Our bank in heaven is bulging because we have a blindness in the area. And I grew up being trained that you should always be thankful for what you have and don't ask for too much, because that's selfish and poverty mentality, and I've been having to overcome it my whole life. And so I keep listening to the Lord. He keeps giving me steps and going higher and higher to come out of that. And it's working, because he wants us to have wealth so we can touch the world.
Amen.
It's so
questions?
Just want to say thank you for doing what you do.
How's your pain level?
Better. It feels
Good.
good, and that smelling the oils isn't bad either.
Yeah.
That
So,
helps too.
yeah. So, you know, if altar workers understood essential oil and the anointing of oil, if they took, let's say if you just even had lavender instead of olive oil, and they put it on their hand and they had the person smell it, 3 big inhales, what that does is it goes directly to the limbic part of the brain, which is the seat of the emotions. And then it sends a message to the entire body: stand at attention to receive the truth. Okay, and so, and then if you put it on the area, if there's an area that you can do that with, and then, you know, surround it and begin to have them picture the spirit that raised Christ from the dead exploding into the area, you're going to have healing 90% of the time. If the lie is still there, you know, you could get used to what different body parts mean, so that you could say, you know, would you like to know why this is here? And then if you could just address why it's there, and then ask them to ask the Lord, what is the truth? Jesus, do you really feel that way about it? Do you really feel like she's nothing, she's bad, she's not good enough? Do you really, did you just goof up and one of the people you made wasn't good enough? So what's the truth, Jesus? And then you go with the first thing that comes to you, because he's always speaking, even when we're not hearing. And then you speak it out, and and it breaks it right then. And then they just have to do their homework for as long as it takes to keep it there. I had one lady who had MS, and she was healed, but she had the symptoms for 30 days. She continued to speak the truth, and after 30 days it disappeared forever. That's been a long time ago now. Yeah.
So, Teresa, can I ask a question? So you said what body parts mean. So are you saying that depending on where the symptom is, means something? Like if there's something with your leg versus your shoulder,
Yep.
means something about the lie?
What the lie is.
Where? Oh, I see.
Every lie deposits in a different part of the body.
Okay.
So like with the neck, it's being resisted your whole life and not allowed to be who you were created to be. And let's say scoliosis. You were pulled in 2 different directions. Yeah, against your will. If you have vertebrae that have collapsed and
Yeah, what you call those
that
things?
is your threshold of tolerance for the issue has been breached. You've been resisted so long that you can't take it anymore, and your spine gives up and it collapses. If it's low back pain, that's unsupported in life. Like we talked about with shoulders, overburdened, you're carrying too much of the load, more than your share, and it's not helping them and it's not helping you, and that's not correct burden bearing. Burden bearing is this way.
Right.
All right. Stomach issues, what's eating you? Unresolved emotional conflict that is you have anxiety and turmoil about it. Respiratory is grief, sorrow, and rejection. Knees, it's unresolved emotional conflict that has gone on for years, and you've stuffed it down. And it's negative emotions have a lot of weight. They're very heavy, and they land right here or lower. If it's hands, it's I can't take this anymore. I can't get a grasp on what's going on in my life. I can't take this. Every finger's different. If it's hips, it's fear of the future, fear of going forward in life, because there's nothing to look forward to. If life's going to be like this, you know, I'm afraid to go into the future.
How about a wrist?
I'd have to look that one up. I think it's something about being. I've been too flexible all my life, and I can't give anymore. Something like that. I'm not sure. I've seen it recently, but I'm not sure.
Teresa, all the areas that you've mentioned and accompanies these things, you found it from where?
Okay, so most people are familiar with Henry, right? He has that, but I started out with him, and I think it's Dr. Carolyn Maines. She has what I call the Blue Book. I have kind of gone away from both of them because I found so many others, and these others I've changed because of my experience with people. And my prophetic gift, I can, what I do is I do a personal destiny song for the person. So it's like, I know this person. God tells me everything. I know who they are. I start with their name meaning.